walking by faith, went back to work. Like, I don't know if this worked. I don't know what's next. A month goes by. I'm able to get that second scan or that scan. And for the first time.
It was here. Right?
And here in the United States. And for the first time in 4 years, clear scan. I was just, jaw dropped. Like, what? Like a clear scan? What do I even do now? Like, how do I even move forward without this constant cancer, life of figuring things out? Like, I had a clear scan, And that was 3 years ago. And from there, we just continued the diet lifestyle, right? Continued with supplements. And a lot of that has kind of tapered off as I've continued to walk in health and continued to be cancer-free, and I still am. I went back to Mexico a year and a half later for like a follow-up. Same thing, we did all the same therapies minus chemotherapy. Had a scan, still clear.
That was like a week or something.
A week, yeah. I spent another week there, yeah. And I am due for another scan, but as of today, I'm still cancer-free. One of the big things that came out of that, and just to kind of tie the story up in this way, I told God before that 10-day fast that I would give my life. As soon as I came back from Mexico and had that clear scan, there became just back-to-back clear evidences and other people speaking into my life and seeing things that were leading me in a direction of ministry, of giving my life to ministry. One thing led to the next, and now we're 2 years into planting a church in Tampa, And that's all from that promise that I made to the Lord, that I would, as long as I was alive, I was going to give my life to the gospel. And so the Lord is good, and He has made a way, and He is worthy, and I'm very grateful to Him.
Indeed. Is there any other thoughts or any last things in Mexico about you saw God at work in particular? Anyway,
it wasn't. I was hoping for it to be a spiritual journey, and it wasn't a spiritual journey during that time frame that I would have hoped it to be. I didn't have like dreams or radical revelations or whatever. Everything was a struggle.
But your walk with the Lord,
But during that time, yes, walked with the Lord. Yeah, definitely still had a closeness with God.
Because you're like at your wit's end, so.
Yeah. But there's still always wrestling with God.
Right.
I certainly learned how to wrestle with the Lord and what it means to like get face to face with God and say, this is what's going on in my life, and it's becoming too much to bear, and I'm this close to hating you for it, but I'm not quite there yet, and you better do something before I go off the edge. Like, I've had to have those kind of conversations with God, and I've learned that He's not afraid of those conversations. He can actually handle it. My little tantrum, right? My little temper tantrum as a minuscule ant in the grand scheme of things, right? A worthless, meaningless life. Like I had this conversation with somebody the other day and encouraging them, like, I'm a nobody. I have nothing to offer. I am no one special. Who am I to go before the Lord at all with any cares of mine whatsoever? What does Joel Maylett with cancer have to do with anything that's important in the grand scheme of things? But the fact that I still went to the Lord and I just worshiped Him as God and let Him have His way. That was the wrestling match. It was me ending up wrestling with the Lord and letting Him just pin me down and love me, and teach me who He is, what His character is like, and trust Him in the process. But there's books of just revelation and wisdom that I've learned from the Lord during that season, but I think I've shared the highlights, the main points,
The only thought that crossed my mind was about Job. Did you liken yourself to Job during that time?
I think most people are cautious too, but it's funny that you say Job because, like I mentioned, I talked to a friend yesterday who's going through a life-threatening situation. We had this conversation, and I just had to just smack him around and be like, "Who are you? You're nobody, but for the grace of God in your life. Who are you to complain to the Lord?" And it reminded me of when Job complains to God and God's response, which was, "Who are you? Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Where were you when I told the ocean where to stop? Who are you to even have issue with any of this?" Right? And if anything, that aspect of the Job journey, I can absolutely relate to, And people have a problem with the book of Job and why it's even in there. And do I liken myself to Job? No, I didn't have everything taken away from me, right? Like I can't, who can really measure themselves to Job as being rich and well, children, family, everyone dies, everything's gone, his body is dying, right? Who can really relate to Job? But in a way, in a sense, yes. I mean, the story of Job was one that at least brought some clarity, not hope necessarily, but clarity as far as okay, when I'm going through, someone else has gone through before and they found a way. And so I'm going to look for the way, which Jesus said that I am the way, the truth, and the life. Right. But yeah, Job's story was certainly part of that journey.
One last question.
Sure.
Time. Let's see how it goes. Is about. Oh, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Like I had it.
That's all right.
No, it's a good question. How we why do bad things happen to good people? That phrase. As someone through going through that, something like that. You must have grappled with that.
Define bad and define good. Only God is good. Good people. Only God is good. Bad. Satan is bad. Sin is bad. Sickness, cancer, bad, capital B bad. You got to define your terms there, and you have to zoom out and look at the big picture. Right. When you talk about bad things happening to good people, no one is good.
True. And
nothing is bad enough to remove the fact that God is good. I mean, to put it in a short sentence. I mean, I could go on. But that's what I would say.
No, it's not often heard enough people stand on that.
Yeah.
Why
do bad things happen to good people? Who is good? It's a ridiculous notion.
It is.
But I've only been able to come to that conclusion going through something like I've had to go through, And so I come out of that saying, man, who is good? And define bad. Because anything that is evil, for those who love God and are called according to his purposes, God does use for his good. Not your good. His good. His greater plan. I'll end with this, hopefully. We'll see. But the man who I leaned on the most in the scriptures, more than Job, was Joseph. And Genesis 50:31, Joseph's response to his brothers when they came to him and he had the chance to destroy them, right? And they were apologetic. Like, Joseph, we threw you in a pit. Here we are. We are at your mercy. And Joseph says, what you intended for evil, God has used for good, for the saving of many lives. That's God's greater good. It's for the saving of those guys. Joseph went through what he went through so that he could become the source of the nation of Israel being able to survive, right? The entire nation of Israel, all the 12 brothers, right? And so, zoom out and be what is good? What is the good plan, right? And we just trust God with that, right? There's so much more to be said on that, but Joseph's story was the one that I leaned on the most. And I'm like, God, you're going to use this pit as a platform, right? I just made that in my heart. That's what we're doing right now. That's me saying, God, we're going to use this pit, use this crisis as a platform for your glory, to say that I cannot glory in any of it, because it's only by the grace of God. And I'm thankful for the chance to even be able to do this, because you haven't had the chance to actually even tell the story in the way that I've had the chance to do this with you. So thank you for taking the time with that.
Lastly, what would you say to someone if they're going through this right now, going through whatever stage, beginning or in the middle? What critical thing you want to say, or
yeah,
what would you?
I would say I mentioned that when I was in the first 9 months of treatment that I wrote an album. Right. And didn't push it a whole lot, but it ministered to me more than anyone.
Right.
But the highlight of the whole album was a song called Perspective. And it was just about considering all the different areas of my life, and that when you're faced with crisis and faced with death, it puts things in perspective. And so I would say to anybody watching this, going through a crisis, get your perspective right. Get your eyes off of your own problem. Put your eyes on eternity and begin to see things much bigger than your small issue, which is really small when put things in perspective. Any issue put next to our God is non-existent, like smaller than a molecule next to his presence. Our blink of an eye life that we suffer through here, it is a suffer. Jesus said, in this life you will have trouble. You will have trials, but fear not, because I have overcome the world. And what is the promise of Jesus overcoming the world? Life eternal with him. This blink of an eye life that we have now, put it in perspective. It's simply to prepare for eternity, all of forever with him. And so that I had to humble myself. Man, if I could say this as well, let God have his work in your heart through the crisis that you're going through more than anything else. Let God have his work done in your heart. Before cancer, I'm a different person.
Right.
I'm legitimately a different person. I was very proud. I was very arrogant. I didn't know how to love people.
I didn't know you necessarily at the time.
You didn't know me that well, but I was. I didn't have compassion on people. But through that, God has wrecked my idea of who I was and put it into alignment of who he was, because he allowed me to put it in perspective. So it comes down to perspective. So, good questions though, David. Thank you.
I appreciate your sharing, and I hope many people will be touched by it. I believe they will.
Amen. I believe so.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Love you.